And what is going on, everybody? So, welcome to the Philadelphia Eagles take versus the Arizona Cardinals Week 5 preview. Obviously, if you saw it in the description, I have a special guest backstage. But before we get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you smash that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button, guys. And you definitely share the content. Make sure you have that notification bell turned on. Now, let's welcome ACTRO. What's good, my guy?
What's up, man? Appreciate you for inviting me on here.
I had not a problem, especially with Week 5 coming up between my Eagles taking on your Cardinals. So, it's going to be very interesting. Even though, because I know there's going to be some of those general football fans like, oh, like we get like the cupcake schedule and all this dang BS that's been kind of thrown around, especially against my Eagles, because how we started out.
Yeah, that's kind of like us from last year. Every single time we won, we always had that cupcake comment about our schedule, but at the end of the day, a 4-0 team is a 4-0 team for a reason.
Yeah.
They're extremely tough, and I'm looking forward to this game.
Oh, absolutely. But what's good, G Taco? What is good, Steve? But yeah, so far, the way that I want to talk about this is like, obviously the Cardinals are coming off, I say, a decent win over the Panthers, who, let's be real, is absolute dog water. But it really just shows that DeAndre Hopkins has definitely missed, that's for sure, in terms of the offensive production. But it's really, the 6-game suspension did really put a damper on things for the Cardinals. But I think that's, I would say, I think it's like I said, I had this game as close as it could be, probably come down by touchdown or a field goal, because it's going to be close in terms of offensive production.
Yeah, so the game last week, kind of confusing at first, especially in the first half. We started off terrible. Kyler threw that early pick six, but we were able to pull it together. In the second half, we got Hollywood Brown involved a lot more. Kyler got into his normal game mode. Always when we're on the road, we always do seem to pull it together, but we're obviously at home in this game, so we can't afford to start slow this week. We have to start strong against the Eagles, especially with the way their offense has been these first 4 weeks. So definitely have to start off strong in this game.
Oh, absolutely. The way that my offense has been, yes, probably is the best it's ever looked in the last couple of years. It took a while for Howie to really build this offense. Obviously, trade for AJ Brown and get pennies on the dollar from the Tennessee Titans. Also get Jordan Davis to help on that D line as well. We've done so many different moves to really, try and make some more noise. And I would say, not say like a lackluster NFC East, but somewhat semi-competitive, because the last handful of years has come down to us in the Cowboys. The last, let's say, 5 years. Except for the exception of like a 2020, you had the Washington Commanders kind of taking that. But that's pretty much about it. Kyler, because we're going, it's both the battle of the running quarterback. So we know that for a fact. But the way that I see it with the Cardinals defensive line, the one issue I might see is, can J.J. Watt overcome that heart issue that he's already currently dealing with, which sucks, but that's something you don't want to see out of a future Hall of Famer in J.J. Watt.
Yeah, so there was actually news past couple days that he may have to take a couple months off because of that heart procedure, which he claims that, or it sounds like he's going to try to play out through the season, which I hope he at least tries, because he's been our best defensive lineman so far by far. Obviously, with the loss of Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick in the past years, we haven't really had that kind of leader on our defensive line, and now he's kind of taken over on that veteran leadership. Last week, we had guys like Zach Allen play better, Dennis Gardeck, who had that game-sealing interception last week off of a batted ball by J.J. Watt. So he's obviously been an impact this year. He already has 2 sacks. He's leading our team in sacks in the first 4 weeks. So obviously, and we're going to need it too, especially with this Eagles running back core, which we by far have one of the weakest run defenses in the league in the past few years. So we're definitely going to need that kind of same performance that the run defense had last week, holding McCaffrey to 27 yards. But we're going up against a healthier, tougher running back room in Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. So definitely going to need to do the same thing we did last week.
Oh, absolutely. And not to mention, too, if we ever get Boston Scott back, another guy that we've seen what could be that could have that bruise ring, that Trey Sermon that we did pick up from the 49ers, who actually already shelled out really well against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And like I said, there's going to be those people say, oh, it's just the Jaguars. I like to give Jaguars a lot of props let's be real, they truly deserve. I mean, turning around, getting a better head coach, and just really making significant changes to be a better team in one of the weakest division in football in the AFC South. Losing Daniel Jones, yeah, that was the biggest blow for him to go to Las Vegas. JJ Watt, I admire how tough he can be, but when it comes to a heart issue, I would say just at least take a rest, because shit, that could, I don't want to go far, but you kind of understand why I feel like sometimes if you do have an heart issue like what JJ's going through, I wouldn't risk it, but if he wants to play through it, I mean, more power to him. But like I said, I mean, the run defense, has not been the best. I mean, we've seen it against some of the teams that you played. Your run defense gave up lots of yardage from the run game. And, especially, like I said, with coming in with Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell, you're going to see a lot more of that. And because I don't know how good your pass defense truly is, but you're going to have to watch out because we have a 3-headed wide receiver monster in, Quez Watkins, Smith, and A.J. Brown. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what this Cardinals defense can do against my Eagles' highly powered offense.
Yeah, so our passing defense, basically, they've been kind of confusing in these first 4 weeks. Week 1, Travis Kelce was about the only receiver that dominated them. Week 2, they held Devontae Adams to 2 catches for 12 yards. And week 3, besides the jet sweep touchdown by Cooper Kupp, he didn't really do that much. And in week 4, they allowed DJ Moore to get 65 yards, and that was their leading receiver. So they've been kind of inconsistent as far as this season goes. But what I've noticed when it comes to game planning for these big receivers, which if I were to pick an X factor for the Eagles offense, I would pick Devontae Smith, mostly because I know A.J. Brown's by far their best receiver, which is kind of why I think Devontae Smith is going to be the guy for the offense, because Vance Joseph and Cliff Kingsbury, they've been really good at game planning for these top receivers in these first 4 weeks. So that's why I think Devontae Smith is going to be that guy that pulls a shocker for the Eagles offense. And it doesn't matter if the passing offense for Philadelphia plays bad. It doesn't matter if Jalen Hurts plays bad, because they're a complete offense with that running back room. And we saw it last week. Jalen Hurts had an interception, didn't have a passing touchdown, but with that running offense, they were still able to get 3 rushing touchdowns altogether, which got them the victory. So we're definitely going to have to, step it up on the passing and running defense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, Kyler Murray, I have him in fantasy. If he does actually do this pretty well against my Urs, I hope he does give me some fantasy points, but that's besides the point. But like you said, I mean, Jalen Hurts, like you said last week, was not one of the best, quote unquote, best games he's ever had. But yes, he threw over almost 240 to 250 yards, but he still made up for that one interception with the 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, mostly because Miles Sanders pretty much pulled a LaShawn McCoy. And if a lot of Eagles fans will remember how when it snowed, like LaShawn McCoy, when it comes to these weather conditions, will ball out like if it's rain or snow here, especially in the Northeast. But like you said, I mean, it's like we're going to have to also game plan against you guys too, because we know that not having DeAndre Hopkins is going to still hurt you guys offensively. Kyler Murray, we know what this kid can do. We've seen it against the Raiders. We see it in the other team. I mean, and other teams too. I mean, obviously you get mollywopped in week 1 against the Chiefs. I mean, I don't really see the Cardinals really being super terrible, but I think they're kind of like where they're at team wise. I think they're without D-Hop I think they're right in the middle of the pack of the NFC West.
Yeah, so thankfully our division, we're all 2-2 right now, so it's still a very open opportunity, and we don't even have Hopkins back yet, which is why, even for a 2-2 team, I think we still have a really good chance. I mean, with Hopkins coming back, I mean, with our offense right now, Hollywood Brown, our leading receiver, has almost 400 receiving yards throughout the first 4 weeks. Zach Ertz, who we've used a lot in the red zone, he has 2 touchdowns so far. I mean, even without Hopkins, our offense still has the ability to pull the pieces together. But like I said earlier, we can't afford to struggle in the first half again like we've had all season long. I don't even think in the first half we've scored 10 or more points. I think every single game we've had, I think, yeah, we've been held to 7-3, even 0. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we just can't afford that for this matchup.
Oh, absolutely. And I see it to the where like it was just like us last year. Like Leo, even though we were played like we last year, we did play like we completely played like absolute dog water in the first half. But once the second half comes around, we just for some reason flick the switch and start putting up some points. I think that's where I feel like, you know, if we like say hypothetically we do beat the Cardinals, I think that's the one thing I feel like Kingsbury and the coaching staff has to realize, like, you cannot play behind if it's a good or a bad team, you cannot downplay anybody, because we've seen it, especially in the NFL, like how much it will bite you in the ass in terms of, you're going to get burnt, especially if you're secondary, you're going to get burnt depending on the play call. But it's just, but I will say I'll give the Cardinals the benefit of the doubt, the fact that they're playing surprisingly decent football without D-Hop, which is impressive to say the least. And Ertz, I know it pains me to freaking watch that man freaking ball out for the Cardinals, but I mean, God, being a long-time Eagle, though, it's, I don't know, man. It's just like the Cardinals, I don't know, the Cardinals at times the last couple of years, for some reason, they just feel like they're like an anomaly at times. Like they get all this talent, for some reason they just can't execute what they need. Especially last year when I hate to say it, but when the Cardinals shit the bed against the Rams in the postseason, like that's one of my biggest nitpicks.
Yeah, just and last season, not just losing and getting annihilated in the playoffs, but starting 7-0, finishing 11-6. The year before that, we were 6-3, finished 8-8, and missed the playoffs. But that's just the Cliff Kingsbury thing, if you ask me, because even before he was a Cardinal, he did it a lot in college. And just and a lot of people like to blame it on Kyler Murray, because in the second half of the season, he does tend to have more interceptions than he does touchdowns, especially last year. But if you actually look at if you were to like compare his stats without Hopkins to his games when he has Hopkins, he's a way better quarterback. He throws so many more yards. And that's why I think it's going to be the complete opposite. I feel like this first half is when we're going to lose a little bit more. But once we get Hopkins back, our offense is going to start sinking. The chemistry is going to suit in a lot more, and we're going to be able to finish strong. I'm not saying we're going to win our division or go far in the playoffs or anything like that. But I feel like if we get Hopkins back, Kyler's chemistry with the team and with the coaching staff is going to improve a lot more. And I feel like we're just going to finish the season strong, which we haven't really been able to do for quite some time. So it'd be nice to gain some momentum if we were to get into the postseason.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that that division is still wide open at 2-2 so far entering week 5. Now, another thing too is just like, I don't know if you're going to be one of those guys that will believe that Kingsbury's on the hot seat, but because I think I would say, he should be partially on the hot seat, because his play calling has, let's be real, not been the best in terms of, because if this team can get right, I think you got a good offense, like a top 10 offense right there. Kyler Murray, D-Hop. Trying to think can't think of your other wide receivers. It's rather dropping off at the top of my head, but just because I think because Cardinals really, from what I remember, really didn't have that much to really offer in terms of big names, other than the fact that they made a mistake by getting Emmitt Smith back in the early 2000s, and that really didn't turn out so well by the Cardinals. But I think this team can do well. But like I said, it's it's still early, still week 5. Like I said, D-Hop's coming back next week, which is great, because let's be real, because I want it, because we know that the 49ers are good. The Rams, for some reason, is struggling to really get wins. But everything, you got everything right in your hands. But like you said, if Kingsbury and the coaching staff cannot get this offense going, could you really consider a coaching change at this point?
I mean, you can, just by watching the team, you can tell like that even they kind of point if it doesn't change, because last week Kyler Murray was arguing with Cliff Kingsbury about the play calling. He was furious because Kingsbury wanted to go for it on 4th down, and obviously Kyler just wanted to take the field goal, go up by 3. and they just had a little disagreement about it. And Kingsbury's fourth down play calling decisions have always been terrible. There have been so many opportunities where if you had taken those 3 points, the game would have been completely changed. And we don't really see that a lot from coaches these days anymore, which I feel like that's just the reason why we're struggling, is just you have to have a good play caller and a good head coach in order to get your team moving, which is why, at least myself, a lot of people in my fan base like to blame Kyler for some reason, but just look at what he's done in the first 4 weeks. He only has 2 turnovers. He hasn't fumbled the ball yet, and his completion percentage is above 65%. So I don't understand, how you can blame the quarterback for that. But as far as the head coaching goes, if we don't get this offense turning around, even with Hopkins, we do need to at least think about getting a new coach.
Yeah, and that's a very good point too. And it was the same thing, as over here in Philadelphia when we hired Sirianni, when he started handing his staff, especially with most of it, we also pretty much felt the same way, especially with our defensive coordinator, because our defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon at times has really not appeased the fan base a little bit, especially with this defensive play call. But the last few weeks has been, especially this year, has been a lot better than it was last year. And I really could agree that I would say at this point, if I'm like any coach, just let your quarterback call your plays, because like you said, if I'm like Kyler Murray, I wouldn't trust Kingsbury's fourth down play calling, even though nowadays we've seen coaches be hyper aggressive with it. But the fact that you had an opportunity to go up 3, I think it was before halftime, if I'm not mistaken, too. Like, sometimes I feel like Kingsbury a lot of times doesn't think logically. Like, he just wants to go off with his gut feeling most of the times.
Yeah, and actually I said that plenty of times in the post game I did for the Panthers game. Even though we won, we still could have done so much better, especially in that first half. And in the past, there was a point last season where Kingsbury was out because of COVID, and Kyler was the one calling plays. And the 2 games where he was calling plays, the first game we put up 36 points. The second game we put up, I think it was 31 points. So obviously with him play calling, and we haven't even cracked over 30 points yet this season. So with Kyler Murray play calling, it hasn't even been that bad. I know a lot of people like to say, oh, he doesn't study too much and all that stupid stuff that people say about him, but he is a student of the game. He's always been a student of the game, and he does know how to call plays and just make big things happen, especially on his feet too, which is another thing, because Kyler Murray even came out and said he does want to get his feet involved more. He does want to run the ball a lot more, which with this Eagles defensive line, I feel like he's going to have to do that a lot. But he also said he does what he's told. And based off of that, you can tell, A, he's taking a shot at Kingsbury's play calling, and 2, he's not being told to run. And there was also a stat where when Kyler Murray runs the ball over 10 times, at least, the Cardinals are 13-1. So when he runs the ball, big things happen. We score a lot more, and we tend to win games. So obviously the play calling is obviously what's holding us back.
And that's, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, it's just like, I do feel like if say Kyler Murray is frustrated with the play calls, like at times, you got to give the kid some credit to really put his foot down and said, look, let me call the plays. And like you said, the first 2 games I've seen with Kyler Murray with play calling, like you guys were averaging over 30 plus points in those first 2 weeks. And then ever since, in the last 2 weeks, it's just been less than 30, about like between 20 and 25, give or take. Because like Carolina, you put up 26 against Carolina, and that team is absolutely dog water. Like that's like, my thing is like you said, my Eagles defense, we are pretty good with the run defense. Because obviously we did, especially getting Jordan Davis part of that defensive line, which we have been to get a lot of pressures. I think we're like the leading team in sacks in the NFL. Because we did sack once like 9 times. We've been getting a lot of pressures on quarterbacks. Something that's been a lot of we've been preaching for. It's like you got to at least force the pressures on the quarterbacks, because we still got Slay and Bradbury on the outside. We still got Maddox. He might be back next week from an ankle injury. We can still have other guys that actually can step up in his place. But like you said, if Kyler Murray, it seems like Kyler Murray is going to be running a lot. If I have what to say, because knowing that we're going to have Slay back, most of the guys who got hurt in the Jaguars game are going to come back, and play, which I think that's going to prove a little bit difficulty for the Cardinals offense. But I mean, it's good. Like I said, it's going to be a tough game between these two teams, because I'm not taking the Cardinals lightly. I think they're still a good team in that open NFC West, but I wouldn't say where I think they're like the top elite team, like say like the Kansas City Chiefs or something like that. But I feel like I just don't really I don't take any teams lightly, which I think a lot of football fans nowadays really don't care. But I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I would say, Kyler Murray, I think he's going to be more, I could say he's going to be running the ball more than 10 times, because we might be flushing him out of the pocket. The way that, especially for those times I've seen the Eagles defense so far the first 4 weeks.
Yeah. So based off of that too. And when you look at our offensive line, our left guard has been injured since training camp, and he's still dealing with a calf issue. Our center, who is getting up there in age, he's dealing with an injury issue as well. And we're picking up guys from the practice squad as well. So with this Eagles pass rush, Kyler is going to have to run the ball, and we're facing a familiar face again in Hassan Reddick. So, and Jordan Davis, like you said, I don't think Fletcher Cox, I've heard he's been injured in the past. I don't know if he's doing
he's been pretty much healthy so far in the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Because we've been rotating him and Davis out because Cox is on his last legs. If he does want to decide to retire, because Jordan Davis is going to be a replacement for the foreseeable future. Like you said, Hassan Reddick, week 1 really didn't do much, but going from weeks from 2 to up to this point, has done a really good job. I mean, we had one of 5 players on the defensive line or in the defense with more than 2 sacks. So we have guys that can really, really put you put Kyler Murray on his ass on the turf. But Steve, to answer your question, that was 2017, because that's been the way that I say it with these so far the Eagles the last couple of years has been somewhat. I mean, last year was pretty good, but 2020 I would completely freaking forget, because that was one of our worst years. Well, then again, could be worse than I think the one in 2000. I think we only finished 4-12. So, I mean, we had some pretty bad years. So, I mean, but yeah, Hassan Reddick, I thought it was a solid pickup for us on a team-friendly multi-year deal. Has really starting to live up to it. But like you said, I mean, the O-line for Arizona has not been the best. Like I said, the center has been getting up there in age. Your left guard has been getting hurt. So, I mean, and I know that my front seven is going to eat that up coming Sunday.
Yeah, another fun fact, too. The Cardinals have not won a home game in 340 days.
Oh, boy.
The last home game that we won was week 7 last year against Houston. That was the last home game we won. So, obviously, and in the past 13 road games we played, we're 12-1. So, the only time we're really at our full potential is when we're on the road. So at home, we do tend to struggle a lot too, especially when it comes to our offense. So that's another reason why I have the Eagles winning this game, is just because of their defense. I mean, I feel like, it doesn't matter if Jalen Hurts has a bad game. Or if Miles Sanders has a bad game, that defense is going to kill us based off of what I've seen from them, what I've seen from our offense in the first half. I don't really see a way how our offense can really.
Yeah, the O line's going to hold up, especially with you got Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham coming on either side at you, because Brandon. And then I will say this too: going back to last year, losing Brandon Graham to that Achilles injury really screwed us defensively in terms of having another elite edge rusher, which is crazy that Brandon Graham is still playing at a very high level at this point of his career. One of the longest tenure Eagles, and that's and that in itself, like I said, 340 something odd days and not having a home win. That's embarrassing for a franchise that, from what I remember, that was so the way I say it was so bad the last handful of years. Phillies always finished dead last in the NFC West. But I feel like if I'm the Cardinals organization, that's something has to change, going forward. Because if you can't not win a home game in almost close to a year, I would say there's some problems that need to be addressed That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean the players, they always come out and say they're going to change that atmosphere soon, and they never end up doing it, which I mean, I feel like it's kind of like a fan base thing just cuz, and I know that sounds weird, but I mean, week 1 against Kansas City, I was really mad, not because we lost, but because at the beginning of the third quarter, the fans were already leaving because we were getting annihilated so much, and I was like, I mean, how can your team really play good when the fans aren't really showing support, which is kind of a big factor in why we don't really seem to play that good at home. And I mean, even during the COVID year too, when we went 8-8, I think we won like 3 or 4 home games when we had no fans. So the fans have a really big part in your team playing at their biggest potential at home. And our fans really haven't shown that so far in these first.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, because I know for us, I mean, we tried to do what we can, especially, I mean, we have somebody, I mean, you've seen it, like, especially in week 4, it was so bad, rainy and just muddy at the link against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but we still packed it out, despite it was a rainy Sunday afternoon against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And like you said, it really does play a part, like, to really get this team going. I mean, that's something I feel like the Cardinals, I really do want to see the Cardinals really be a team that has some constant success, but it's just, like you said, if the fan base isn't there to draw the attention, then what is the point of trying to sell out any of your home games? I mean, that's like kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and our roster could have been a lot better too. I mean, if you look at what our general manager and our front office has done in the past, when it comes to, drafts, comes to missing out on free agents that could impact us, we could have gotten James Bradbury, which is another guy that may, torture us a bit in this upcoming week. And we could have maybe get another defensive back, because our secondary coming into this season, I think they were predicted to be ranked bottom 5. And so far they haven't been the worst, but definitely some guys out there could have impacted our team. And another thing with our offense too, which seems to be the only thing we're focused on improving for some reason, because defense does win titles. You need a good defense. You can't just have a good offense, terrible defense. And the Detroit Lions would know that too. But anyway,
but that's a very good point too, and this is why I think this is why we got on Howie's ass. Well, mostly because we didn't, besides last year, get a wide receiver, but this past offseason we just focused mostly on defense, because we know we had a good O line. We know what Jalen Hurts is capable of. I mean, we had the guys to. We're finally actually, and how we've realized to finally build around Jalen Hurts, and you're talking about having a guy that's been very vilified in the city of Philadelphia, and Jalen Hurts is one of those guys, because me and many other Eagles fan base, this is a make it or break it year for Hurts, because if he doesn't, because we do own the Saints' third round or first round pick, but third overall, even though we did fleece him for CJ Gardner-Johnson, but like you said, I mean, if the fact that you're going to focus on rebuilding on the one face of football, that's not a good sign that your front office is that great. I mean, it took us a while for, especially, how, even though 2017 was our Super Bowl year, we did put all our eggs in one basket and did work out for us. But unfortunately, the last couple of years kind of bit us in the ass because of the cap reasons. And that's right. Going into next year, we have more money coming off the books, and that's going to have us almost $40 million under the cap. Whereas, like you said, if you don't have like a solid secondary, because we still have I think we still have an above average to average secondary, which has been showing, they can still do it. Yes, I know Slay's getting up there in age, same with Bradbury, but those still play at a very high level. I mean, we still have Avonte Maddox, finally putting it back to where he belongs, being a slot safety. And that's really worked out. It has been really one of our best safeties, even though, with an ankle injury. So we're going to have senior CJ Gardner-Johnson. Our linebacker core has been somewhat better at the last year and a half in terms of, even though with TJ Edwards, still a good guy, still a good player. I mean, we did also add Kazir White to it, getting a Kobe Dean, which is, in the third round, though, the fact that, because I had this kid was Nakobe Dean, for me, when I saw him at the championship game, was a first round talent. But the fact that the Eagles stole him at a third round value. I think Howie actually shown to really show like he does care about the defense, because our defense was good but wasn't great last year. But we have been trying to make some the most, like you said, try to really build the pieces to have a top 10 defense in the league.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, your GM, your fans wanted your general manager gone at one point.
Yep.
Of all
You're
of
not wrong. That's where the hashtag fire Howie trend started.
Yeah, like I just remember you took Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf. You took Jalen Hurts, and at the time was a questionable move. Now that's kind of like our general manager. I mean, they took Marco Wilson, who had a terrible, like by far probably one of the worst defensive backs last year, who had a terrible season. They took Andy Isabella over DK Metcalf, who we actually ended up releasing a couple the other day.
It was the same thing. We did get rid of the Jalen Reagor, which is great for us, which one of the other mistakes that we have of Howie, and also got rid of JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So the only guy that we still haven't got rid of is Andre Dillard, because the dude has not been shown to be a first round pick that we spent on him. Because it's bad enough that you had Jordan Mailata, who was our 7th rounder, outperforming him on the O line.
Yeah, and actually, in this past draft, I was actually worried what we were going to do with the 26th pick. I thought we were going to go defense. I thought we were going to pick up Trent McDuffie, or at least a defensive back that could have improved us, because we did need to improve our defense. But our general manager being focused on the offense a lot more, we actually traded it to the Ravens for Hollywood Brown, which to me, I don't think that was a more improve our team move. I feel like that was more making a Kyler Murray a happier person kind of move, because at the time people were saying he was going to request a trade because we weren't extending him, and a lot of people, and that's why we picked up a lot of his former Oklahoma teammates in the past offseason, just to kind of get the chemistry back for him and upgrade. And especially because Hopkins got suspended, we kind of did need a new receiver, I guess. But we haven't really, I mean, our general manager in the past, he lets Christian Kirk go to Jacksonville. He lets Chandler Jones go to the Raiders. At the time, because we were talking about trading him for Xavier Howard, he missed out on that. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that he missed.
The Cardinals missed out on trying to rebuild that defense, because I thought Trent McDuffie would have been an easier pick for you guys, part of that secondary, because your secondary last year was not great, but I thought it could have been could have used some work. Because I feel like, with getting JJ Watt, you still at the time, I mean, you did get rid of because Hassan Reddick didn't leave till 2017. When did Hassan Reddick get out of Arizona?
2019 was his breakout year, or no, 2020. He went to Carolina for 2021, and then went to Philly after that.
Yeah, I mean, it really does show a lot of times if you miss out on opportunity. I mean, and it showed us with us too, like especially in the draft. We missed out on guys like, like I said, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf. 2012, we missed out on Russell Wilson. We could have had Russell Wilson in Eagles uniform. So we missed out on these high-profile guys who actually are building up Hall of Fame careers, and we missed out on them. But how we realize is now, he knows he cannot make that same mistake more than once. And, obviously, get cut our losses with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor. We know that these guys were busts anyway, so that really didn't really bit us in the ass too much in terms of, the dead money, which we're willing to eat up because we still have some money left. But, I mean, with everything has been going on, I don't know. I would say if I had to give like a record prediction at the end of the year, it's a 17-game schedule. I would say, I don't know. I think the Cardinals might go 10-7 this year, the way how everything has gone on. I was thinking 7-10. How, especially playing against the Chiefs, but seeing you guys, making the Raiders blow in overtime, and all that kind of really changed how I thought about the Cardinals. Because I mean, I think this Cardinals is a double-digit win team, but there's always that one issue that there is that defense is not going to help. It's not really helping them.
Yeah, last season the issue was Kyler Murray wasn't really showing the leadership. Every time he would have a turnover, he would kind of mope about it, and then the next drive it would, he wouldn't get over it, and it would cause something else to happen. But this season, what's holding us back really is Kyler Murray's leadership has improved. I'm not worried about that going, farther, but the play calling on the other hand is an issue. And actually, back to the getting your team better. The thing that I liked about Howie Roseman was that he did make those mistakes, but what he did was he fixed them. He got AJ Brown, he drafted Devontae Smith. I mean, for us, we still haven't fixed those mistakes yet. We still haven't really gotten our defense, stronger than what it was in 2015, 2016. I mean, back to that kind of mode when we had all that, Pro Bowlers on our secondary and Pro Bowlers on our defensive line with Calais Campbell and all of those guys. So, I mean, that's just but I mean, yeah, the leadership from Kyler, not worried about it anymore. It's more so the play calling now, which is holding us back and not really helping us score a lot more now. But yeah, there is always that issue. But after what I saw against the Raiders, I feel like we have what it takes. I had us going 11-6, but when I looked back at it, I was like, I don't know why I said 11-6. I mean, we have the second hardest schedule. We have a coach who's on the hot seat. We have a banged up offensive line. I mean, there's just so much on the list of a reason why we could not be a double-digit win team this year. But I feel like since the NFC got so much weaker, I feel like even with 9 wins, maybe even 8 wins, we can still potentially snag a 7-seed spot in the playoffs.
But yeah, and the last thing I want to kind of talk about is the scoring predictions, because I feel like you said, with the banged up O line and not having your offensive weapons, I would have to say, it's like, for me, I would say 35-21 in favor of my Birds, because, like you said, I mean, last couple of games I've seen, you scored at least over 20 points, but compared to the first 2 weeks where you scored over 30, like that should really tell you, how much things can change in the next, couple of weeks or so. So my scoring prediction is 35-21 in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. Not just put bias, but what I've seen from the Cardinals, from the eye test, so to speak.
Yeah, so actually, before I wanted to make my score prediction on my picks for this week, I actually saw a stat where the Eagles in the first 4 weeks, they've had at least, I think it was 450, at least 450 total yards in the first 4 weeks in every single game that they've played. So, and yeah, just with the O-line, the play calling, in the first 2 home games we've scored combined against the Rams and Chiefs, the first 2 home games, we've scored 33 points in both of those games combined. So obviously the offensive struggles at home continue. The defense, I feel like we can at least stop the passing, but the run offense from Philly, I'm just too concerned about. I don't really feel like there's going to be an answer for right there. So I think the final score on my prediction, I think I had it being on my picks, if I can remember correctly. I had the Cardinals scoring 24. And if I remember correctly, I think I had the Eagles scoring 34. 34-24 was my
Okay, so it'll be a 10. Okay, I could definitely see that.
So,
because, like you said, there's a lot of factors that will play into to see what the outcome's going to be. But, man, I do appreciate you kind of talking on for the last 40 minutes for some Eagles and, kind of breaking things down and, kind of get your side of things, especially from Cardinals content creator, because some of these are hard to come by nowadays. But before we wrap it up, tell people where they can find you.
Okay. Yeah. So on YouTube, you can find me, the AZTRL. You guys can just call me TRL for short. YouTube channel. I started almost a year ago, and I actually got 200 subs recently. So slowly growing. But yeah, on YouTube, the AZTRL. I do the Arizona Cardinals. Sometime I don't really do the Phoenix Suns or NBA until the Cardinals season's wrapped up, and once in a while I'll do baseball for the Diamondbacks. But you can find me on there, on Twitter as well, the AZTRL. That's mostly where I give my thoughts on the Cardinals and all my teams in general. So on Twitter, the AZTRL. My Instagram, it's kind of like my personal Instagram. It's not really like a sports account, just my personal one. But AJ_Kemp58, you can find me on there too. But for the most part, if you want to follow me just based off on sports, you can do my YouTube, the AZTRL, and same thing for Twitter as well. So
absolutely. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. But we'll see what the outcome comes on Sunday. Really looking forward to that. But let's get to some comments. Do you really have to ask that question? Oh, God, do we want to talk about the Coyotes? So that's a.
Actually, I'm an Arizona sports fan in all sports except hockey. I'm actually not a Coyotes fan. I'm a Carolina Hurricanes fan, actually.
Good.
But I do root for the Coyotes, though. I mean, it's Arizona, so I'll root for all Arizona teams. I don't really.
But yeah, so Nikki says she has it a lot closer. Like you said, it's going to be like I said, we're going to see how close it can be because one more thing before we wrap it up, because I mean, this is what the Eagles have been doing. We've been outscoring our opponents most of the times in the second quarter. In the last 4 weeks, we've been putting up over 20 plus points in the second quarter, and and a lot of times that has cost us a bit of problems, especially in the second half, and not really blowing out our teams. But because most of the time we just melt the clock in like the second half, and that's pretty much what we usually do. But I appreciate it, man, to kind of talk some between kind of preview, and you'll see where our teams lie going right now into week 5. But we'll see how Sunday goes out. But like I said, I appreciate everybody coming through. Go check out my boy AZTRL on YouTube, because dude can know some stuff, especially for the Phoenix Suns. Good grief, after that abysmal preseason, but that's besides the point. But seeing kind of him kind of talk about the Arizona Cardinals or the Diamondbacks, the one team that gives my team the freaking Vietnam flashbacks, but that's besides the point. But with that being said, appreciate you coming through. Appreciate everybody coming through. This is Robert from the Philly Sports Talk Podcast. I'll see you guys in the next one.